A day in the life of a throuple. So we just woke up, trying to wake Tyler up. He's always the last one awake.
Polyamory doesn't necessarily mean that you're like constantly looking to be with multiple people. I think it's more just that you share in the belief that you can love more than one person at a time.
We're polyamorous. My child has 6 adult caretakers.
We're polyamorous. Why have a baby when somebody else in the poly guild already has a kid?
We're polyamorous. The testing center already knows us by name.
We're polyamorous. We get jealous and turned on at the same time.
Hi, since we've been on the topic of relationships lately, I thought we would do a deep dive into polyamorous relationships because, yes, adding a third person to the mix is a thing now. If this is new news to you, I would love to show you how prevalent this trend is right now. Because about 1/3 of American singles say they have been in a non-monogamous relationship. On top of 19% of Gen Z has experienced polyamorous relationships, compared to 10% of millennials and 7% of Gen Xers. So in just 10 years, those percentages have doubled. There's also a dating app called Fields that reported a 500% increase over the last 3 years in the number of app users who added polyamorous to their profile. Another app called OkCupid said 33% of current users stated they'd consider an open relationship, which was up from 27% in 2014. And there was a 45% increase in profile mentions of terms relating to non-monogamy between 2021 and 2023. Again, that means in just 9 years, it doubled. And I'm just sitting here thinking, when did this even become a 1% chance? When did this become a thing? Well, my older people watching will recognize that polyamory really came into the picture during the 60s. But the swinging and free love of the 1960s didn't last. And the US was followed by the divorce revolution of the early 1970s. So if polyamory lost its traction 60 years ago, what is it doing in 2024? And it makes you wonder, is this trend of polyamory due to how much Hollywood is pushing it? The first time polyamory was brought to my attention, I was watching a show called Bridgerton. As a hopeless romantic, I just couldn't stay away from this show. And I found myself just skipping all of the sex scenes. I just wanted to see the romance. But then season 3 dropped and episode 4 rolled around. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. First, they show us Luke Thompson, who plays the character Benedict, deny the invitation from the girl he loves into a polyamorous relationship. Then the next few episodes are him in deep conflict about it until he finally gives in, which led me to dive deeper on this because I was like, is this seriously a thing now? Am I considered old school for thinking this is crazy that we are glorifying this? Then shortly after this, I couldn't believe my eyes when I was met with a trailer with a child actress that I watched growing up on Shake It Up. Zendaya, who is featured in the new 2024 movie The Challengers, participates in a threesome scene with her and 2 boys. And this new aspect to sexual relationships definitely got a rise out of everyone, considering this scene on YouTube has gained 40 million views in just 5 months. Not to mention another star that I watched growing up, Lindsay Lohan, who I was thrilled to see her life turn around and getting back on the big screen, just released a Christmas movie where she was also an executive producer on, which left me so confused. The glorification of couples cheating on each other in this movie and their spouse being okay with it was mind-blowing. Everyone is with everyone's husband. I don't think there was a single person in this movie that didn't get cheated on. And Christmas Day, we are met with everyone being caught and one of the wives being like, "Oh, it's okay, darling. I already knew."
Oh my god, you know.
You know.
Of course I know.
Know what?
Marge and Leonard are having an affair.
What?
Daddy? What? It's fine. How can you say that? He's happier and around less. It's a win-win.
What? Just totally okay with the fact that her husband had an affair. And I'm just sitting there wondering if this is what we're gonna start normalizing. Because this goes hand in hand with a Pew Research survey that reported over half of Americans under the age of 30 say that an open marriage is acceptable. How did we get here? I'm deeply concerned. And the question of why is this being fed so heavily to to us. So it's clear that Hollywood is pushing this. So I don't know why I should be surprised at this point that Wattpad is loaded with romantic books glamorizing polyamory with hundreds of thousands of readers. Barnes & Noble's also loaded with books about polyamory and how to enter into a polyamorous relationship. And the #1 book in the book world of polyamory, titled Picking Around by Emily Rath, debuted as #1 in the Amazon ebook store in the US and Canada. I said it in this video and I will say it again. I truly don't think parents understand how impactful and influential book world has been on their children and this next generation. Just take a look at the effect that this book on polyamory has had on the youth.
I read Pucking Around. This book is so smutty. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is my 10 scale. In closets, in rooms with each other, there's 4, there's 2.
I finally read Pucking Sweet by Emily Rath, and oh my god, you guys, this is like poly if you want 2 men.
Pucking Around by Emily Rath. This book contains detailed 2, 3, and 4-person sex scenes that include elements of impact play, snowballing, and breeding kink. So it's actually not that dissimilar to the Bible.
When I was a kid, I didn't even think of a possibility of that. So let's figure out how we got here in such a short amount of time. When I was researching for this video, I was met with an abundance of insinuations of why polyamory is suddenly on the rise. Some believe that it's due to the pandemic boredom, which led to a ton of ruined marriages. Some believe it's due to the rise in the public perception of polyamory that has caused a bunch of people to say, okay, well, instead of divorce, what if I just forced poly onto my partner? Then I can date other people without the work of disentangling my life from them and the pain of leaving. Another thought being, what if the cure for our dead bedroom is to throw a hot young woman into it to give us all the sex? And lastly, we see a generation that's more open to genders and sexualities, and that bleeds over into relationship structures too. I think it's a little bit of all of that. I think those are all great points, but I would also argue that it's part of the desensitization of sex, which we have a whole video on that. But I largely believe that that is a huge part of why people are taking on to this new trend so easily. And it makes me wonder, which you may or may not agree with me, but where is the shame? Does our society know what shame is anymore? Truly, when I leave the house or when I turn on the TV, I can't help but feel as though we live in a shameless society. There is no shame in how many sexual partners you've had. There is no shame in having an OnlyFans and being in the porn industry. There is no shame in not wearing a bra out of the house or in a video online. And now there is no shame in being involved with more than one sex partner at a time. Being in a relationship with more than one person at a time. And based on what the movies are feeding us now, on top of all of that, there is no shame in cheating on the person you've married. But that also may be why our culture is becoming so accepting to polyamory. It's because marriage has no meaning anymore. We have removed gender roles and took God out of the picture. So at that point, what is marriage? A document from the government? Honestly, at that point, I don't blame those who have been accepting to this narrative, because if there's no God, then what's the point? Because if there isn't a God, marriage truly is just a piece of paper. If there is no God, why don't we all just sleep with each other? Why have any boundaries at all? This is where I believe we are headed. The obvious suppression of shame and the removal of God is why we are headed in this direction. I'm so thankful that I didn't ignore the shame I felt when I had an OnlyFans, that I listened to that voice that told me this feels wrong. That's shame. And you know what shame does? Shame points us to the fact that we have a creator, that there is a reason you feel bad when you steal, lie, or cheat. We feel shame. We feel guilt. We feel regret. And that isn't something to be suppressed. It's something worth looking into. There is a reason behind those feelings. I'm so glad I looked into why I felt shame about the things the world told me I shouldn't feel shame about. Because if I ignored that shame, I would have ignored God. Because it is that obvious factor that provides us with the invitation to Jesus, who not only took our sins on the cross, but he took your shame, your guilt, and your major condemnation as well. I think polyamory is on the rise because America has lost its shame, because it has lost the very thing that made us such a prosperous nation, and that is a foundation built on God and the Bible. And in doing that, we have become a shameless nation. But that's just my take. What do you guys think sparked this rise in polyamorous relationships? Do you think it will become more and more acceptable, or do you think that over time it will fade out? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in there. God bless you guys.